St. Bernard's Catholic Church, established in 1877. We interviewed two different people, Paul and Jeanne Vieke, who have been longtime members of the church. And we're going to go over the history of this church. And the date today is 7/25/2017. This is the outside of the church. This is the church steeple. And we're going to have a view of the inside of the church. On the outside, we're going to see the cemetery behind the church. And we'll go over the history of this church.
Rosary Garden, it was built or dedicated by Leroy Sibes and Sonny Sibes, and they did most of the work, the drawing and a lot of volunteer work, and everything they did. I mean, Sonny just was brilliant at this when she got knighted.
And those 50 little dots there standing for the rosary.
Now the statue, as far as I know, came from Italy. It's marble.
Beautiful. This is the east side of the church we're seeing right now, and there's a cemetery in the background with the big cross over there.
Cemeteries in the background.
When did you put that cross up, Paul?
Well, it was here way before I did. I came here in about 1965.
So you've been here 50 years or so, 52 years. Yeah.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. Let me Rosary Garden here, and this is the name of all the priests that served this church here for many, many years. If you look here, this is it starts with Alexander Kester, George Widerin, and then if you look, Bernard Ewers, and then Peter Holmes. His mom and dad were charter members here. He was a priest here from 1885 to 1895, and all the way to 1950 here, up to Father Lawrence Mole. More recent priests, and a lot of people wouldn't remember some of these people, Father Conan, Volmer, Father Stone, Lorline, Bauer, Deering, Bernie Lutz, Anthony Ernst, and Ronald Zagunda, and those are the more recent priests. Associate priests, you see Paul Ferguson, Gary Kaiser, Brian Emick, Sudar Bastati, and Stephen Hall was a deacon, along with Joe Severs and Mark Wade. This is this St. Bernard's cemetery, and a hearse can get in here on the blacktop pretty easily. This was established during the era of 1877, and you see some of these old stones. This is 1883 of a Florence Wenger. And you see 1885 George Wera, but very old stones here. Old cemetery. George Weber here. George's is here. Obert's, many of them. So this is a beautiful cemetery, and we'll come back out here after we look at the inside of the church. There you see the Oberts, and this was on the Obert property. A lot of the Oberts gave property here, and this is what got a lot of this started way back in 1877. They were a branch church from Fort Branch, actually, and then they were helped start by a church over in Fort Branch area, and then they in turn helped another church start over in Oakland City. And so this is how little churches would start. Where the background is, where I'm showing now, is where the old school was. Opened in 1899, it was open till 1929, closed during the bad recession. They had a lot of members here, 52 on the list during the late 1800s, and up before the recession, about 1930, they had 132 families listed, and then after the recession in 1938, it went down to 52. How many families now, Paul?
Well, you know, it seems to be the last I heard was 32 to 45. You know, really, I don't know. I could call Rose over; she wouldn't know. Yeah. So I may do that.
Well, we're going to go inside and look inside the church. It's a beautiful church. Anything else to remark on out here, Paul?
Well, yeah, I want to show you a place out here.
Oh, as we look at some of these tombstones here, the Oberts predominate here, and Oberts had close to over 160, 200 acres around here, and they gave a few acres to the church here. I'll look the records up, but even more acres than that. And we had a church and school here. A lot of things that supported the community here, but you see the name Obert. Then we're going to do a 360 here. We see Kissels, Schulteises, Williamsons, Davises, Halls, Shillies. And then right here you see Hasnars. Hasnar was a predominant name here. And there's Reverend Francis Bauer here. But when you look over here, there's a name Dieters, and you look at Bernard Dieters, and if you name the name of this church was named St. Bernard, and that's Bernard Dieters, and he was one of the charter members here, along with the Oberts. But that was a period of time where they thought it would be named after the Oberts because they gave everything to them for this property. But it ended up named St. Bernard's and or Bernard's. And there's Silva, and Father Silva's been here. Deweese's. You see plenty of names. You see the Liezers, the Foleys, Sievers, Memmers, and then a whole section here with the Georges. Georges still have a farm right adjacent to this. Just south of this is a farm there. Lefflers, a lot of Lefflers up here. And according to Rose Obert and also Paul Vieke, it looks like we have 125 members or so here right now. 125 families here, which is up from 1889 of 52 or so. So it's a thriving parish. No more school, but services on Sunday. Beautiful church.
Oh, that's the original school, and the 2 nuns lived there at one time, and they lived.
Benedictine nuns. Benedictines.
Benedictine nuns, yeah.
And the schoolhouse is a 2-room schoolhouse or 1 room?
We can go inside. You can see it here shortly.
Built what year?
I don't know.
I think I saw some 1899, then closed in 1929, but still functioned for other things.
Yes, right now it's used for communal activities.
Yes,
for the church.
Yeah. How many acres are we on right now? About 4 or 5 acres?
It looks like about 5 acres. That corn right down here belongs to the church.
I see. Yeah.
So it goes from that cornfield, swing around and on down to the tree level.
I see. I see. This is a view of the Rosary Garden, St. Bernard Rosary Garden, established 2015. Well done. And who was the creator of this, Paul?
Well, the 2 that really instigated was Leroy and Sonny Sibes.
Leroy and Sonny Sibe helped make this Rose Garden. Just a beautiful edifice here. It's 2 years old, but you look at the stones and all the things that stand for each decade of the Rosary. A beautiful creation. These are the bricks of people that donated for this Rosary Garden. You see the different names, all kinds of different names: Silvas, Burks, Allens, Leon, Brown, Kramer, Alice, Charles, the Foos family, Wemmers, respective Vincent's Garden, Greg and Rose Oberts, lots of different Oberts, the Jennings, Holzmeyers, Turners, Martins, Fuse again, Yaquis, Holzmeyers, Oberts, Brahms, the Mole family. There's Paul and Jeanne Vieke with the son David, Joe, and Tom. And Vieke's, Paul's been here since the 1960s, so really just about a chart. Here's another set of names on the opposite side of the Rosary Garden of people that donated: the Reinhardts, Kurtzes, Rileys, Stricklands, Nurembergs, lots of different Oberts, Gress family, Lefflers, Spindlers, Gress, Gullett, Woodruff, Schmitz, Ziliaks, Weber family, the Dice, the Thomas family, Soldiers of the War, Webers, Georges, Kissels, and Esray, Shetlers, Hassanars, and Daywigs. This, the Christies, Paul and Hattie, are the parents of the Sibes that helped create this. Christy and Paul Hattie established 1940, and Sonny and Leroy Sibe right there next to Christy, the Paul and Hattie Christie, the Krieg family. They helped create this.
My name is Paul Francis Vieke. I was born in Vincennes in 1936. My parents' name was Gregory Vieke. My mother's name was Mary DeLeo.
And you came here to this period?
I came here, I think in 1966, I became a member of St. Bernard's.
And why did you come to this area? What was job brought you
The
here?
reason I came to this area, I was living in Vincennes, and they were building fertilizer plants all over the area. And they was going to build a plant in Hobstop. Gulf Chemicals built a plant first. So then they had some land built over at Mackey. So they said, we're going to build a plant there, which was kind of a place because they really didn't think it would do good over there.
Yeah.
So I took the job of the management of Mackey plant. It was Custom Farm Service. It was the name of the thing. So we did well. It did well. We brought the fertilizer east of 41 instead of west of 41. So we did some good. With this.
And then you lived here, you and your bride here, Jeanne, lived here, and you've been here since around 65 or 66. Tell us how you've liked this parish and what it feels like to be a member of this parish for close to 50 years.
Well, it is really important to us. We love the parish. We love the people. We have many friends. I can't say I'd ever want to go back to Vincennes. We talked about that quite often through the years, and we thought, what would happen if we would have stayed in Vincennes? Well, it would have not been what it was. We think about the friends that we would have missed. Was one of the most important things.
Okay, and your bride here, can you introduce yourself and your maiden name? And this is Jeanne. Jeanne, can you introduce your maiden name, your new name now with marriage, and then where you came from?
My name is Jeanne Vieke. I've lived in this parish since, as Paul said, 65 or 66. I was born and raised in 1939, and I was born and raised
In Olney,
Illinois.
Yeah. And then you moved over here because your family.
We moved over here, and if you ask me about friends, there's just nothing like them here.
And you were a nurse. How many years were you a nurse there, Jeanne?
Over 50 years.
Where'd you nurse at?
I didn't move around a lot. I wanted to stay in my county where I lived to help the people here in this county. So I worked in Oakland City at the hospital for several years. Then, thanks to Marlene and Roberta, both the Obert girls, I was able to get a job at South Gibson. So I worked for South Gibson Schools for a little over 20 years.
And you mentioned the name Marlene Obert, and what was the other lady's name?
Roberta
Obert.
She was an Obert, married to Silva.
Silva. Now, if we're standing on the lands that Oberts, we said earlier, I think 1,600 acres on the southeast corner, but we're standing on their land. They gave the church about 5 acres, 1977. Their great-great-great-grandmother was the inspiration. She came over from Germany, came up the Ohio River to here. She came through the mountains, and her husband came up the Ohio River, and they met here and then married over in Fort Branch, had 40 acres in Fort Branch. Then they moved over here, and they said, we're going to get a church instead of having it at our house from 1875 to 1877. They said, we're going to make our own church. And they got actually St. Paul's Lutheran that's down about a mile from here to help make this church. And the Catholics and the Lutherans helped make this church and the Lutheran church. But the Obert's land was given here, 5 acres, and they have been the backbone of the church, along with many other families. And they've done a lot of the history here of this church. Now, these family friends, and it's like a second family here, the church and the people to both of you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the altar, or who that person is up on the top there. Let's start on the left top. And maybe, Paul, you can describe that gentleman up here. I've focused on him, the left top up there. I'm focused on the man in the dark.
The man in the dark is Saint Bernard, or Saint Bernard, if you anglicize the name. And of course, the three on it would be Mary Magdalene, and I guess the mother of Jesus, and John, the apostle. The one on the right is Saint Anthony. He's always described as holding the Christ child.
And then that altar's made of wood?
The altar is made of wood, yes.
Okay. And we go over to this corner. This is the northeast corner of the church. And in 1974, you were here when this corner of the church burnt down. Can you tell us about that fire?
Well, it was kind of, it started real slowly. And a friend of mine had got our fire preservers up here, and they were empty. Yeah. We could have stopped them. We grieved for this for years, but anyway, it started there and did quite a bit of damage here. Yeah. I think around $35,000, something like that. Now, some of this, I may not be exact, but.
And who are the figures on this altar?
I know, of course, St. Joseph. Then one of them is St. Bosco. I don't know who the other one is.
St. Bosco and then somebody else. Yeah. Bosco in the white or the red?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, but one of them is
St. Bosco.
Okay, and then we're going to go to the other altar here on the left side. Tell me who's...
The altar, if you notice here, is the death of St. Joseph, of course.
On the bottom is the death of St. Joseph, and I don't know when that happened, I guess after Christ, but that's on the bottom, so that's interesting.
About 17 years old, according to...
17...
Christ would have been about 17 years old.
When Joseph died?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, then we're going to go to the other altar here. The other altar is the Mary's altar. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, I know the one. Of course, it's Mary, Queen of Heaven and Earth.
Yes.
And the one on the left is Saint Teresa.
Uh-huh.
The one on the right is Saint Agnes.
And that is my mother's.
And that is Jeanne's mother's name.
Uh-huh. And your mother's name was what? What was her name?
Agnes Scully.
Agnes what?
Agnes Scully was her
maiden name. Okay. And then so we got St. Teresa and St. Agnes up there.
Yes.
Okay, and then on the bottom, is that Mary's death, or what's that on the bottom?
What that is, Annunciation.
Annunciation, okay. All right, the Annunciation.
Gabriel announcing to her that she will be
the mother of God.
Mother of Christ.
Yeah, okay. Now, your altar rail came in, I think they said in the book 1 year, I don't know, but it wasn't always here. I don't know what year it came in, but maybe I think 1938. It was here all the time you've been here.
Yes, the altar rails.
Yeah. Now, we're going to turn this off for a minute. We're going to talk about the windows, or I'm just going to start on these windows. They are if you look there, that is Gothic type structure, and this building is more Gothic with that pointed window like that. And this window was given, they're all of similar shape and a little bit similar design, it looks like. This one is given by Anton Obert, memory of Anton Obert. Now, he was the person that donated the land. He came over and came up the Ohio River, and Anton was the one that had went to Fort Branch first, and then came over here, and then gave all the land for this, 5 acres out of his 1,600 acres or so. So he was pretty important to this church. Who's that first window by there?
It's St. Joseph by the Holy Name Society.
Yeah, okay. And then we're going to go to the next window is in memory of Magdalene Obert, and she is really the prime mover of this church, because in 1875, her and Anton had Mass at their house from 1875 to 1877. She says, we want to have a church. So they donated the 5 acres here, but she was really more the inspiration. I think they had 12 kids and 7 lived, 5 in childbirth died, and then the kids became teachers here and also organists. They were the organists here for many years. And they did get their organ from St. Wendell, and they drove over in a horse and buggy and brought the organ back I think it was $1,000 way back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But these Oberts are really prime movers. This lady probably is the prime mover of having this church, Magdalene Obert, and we'll have a picture of her from the book.
Now, I don't know a lot about this, but Mary Leffler, Will and Mary Leffler would be the mother of Father Bernard Lutz.
I see.
I know her name was Mary.
So
and these guys are connected. They're relation.
Yes. Now, Bernie Lutz wrote a book.
And Father Ziliak.
And Father Ziliak, but they're related. But this is a book written, it says, this is written in, let me try to get it focused here. This is written by Bernie Lutz, and it's a 1977 copyright, I believe. And it's the history of this church, and it was edited by a nun, Sisters of Providence nun named Sue Butold, who was actually in class with my aunt, Barbara Browning. But this is written by Bernard Lutz, and so he's the son of this Will and Mary Leffler right here. So he had, and Bernie was a priest here not too long ago. He was a priest up here, and people here liked him very much. Here's another window, and tells the significance of Jerome and Matilda Obert, Paul.
Now, Jerome and Matilda Obert were cousins to the Oberts, like Clemens Obert and Jerome were first cousins. As far as I know, if it's the right Jerome. Now, Jerome had children like Winford, and I can't remember his other children, about 4 children, but this was donated by Jerome.
But they're part of the Obert clan.
Yeah, part of the
and
Obert clan.
Cousins, descendants of the first Oberts
Yes,
that donated
right.
the church. Yes. And this one is donated by the Altar Society called the Queen of Peace. Altar Society very active in keeping the church very clean and proper. Okay, go.
This is the choir loft, and it's still active. There's choir members that still sing from the choir loft.
And the organ projects through the whole
Yeah,
church.
Organ, and they have, of course, speakers, nice speakers. So it projects out to the parishioners.
And this choir, and the organ, is that the same one they got from St. Wendell many years ago, or they had a new organ?
Not many years. This is a relatively new one. I can't remember when they got it. Maybe 15 years ago.
I see.
Don't put that in concrete.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Paul, for giving us this tour of this place.
Now, remember, I'm not.
You're not expert.
I did the best I could.
Yeah, thank you very much. 1974, we had a fire that was in the background of this corner, the northeast corner of the church, $35,000 damage. And then tell us, Jeanne, what they did with the church after that time.
Well, they completely restored it. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
The women got together, got their heads together, and they decided that they would have an antique auction and a chicken dinner. And it would be a first for us for a while. I don't know when the last one before we came, but this was a first. And we went around the whole neighborhood. We had them all labeled, every parishioner. We stopped and asked if they would have an antique to share for this, to make money to restore the church. And everyone promised that, they had something for us. And you cannot imagine the stuff that came in, old.
Yes.
And we carted it away with those of us who got to buy a piece or two.
Huh.
And the church began to blossom out, and the people were coming out more. They'd been working together and getting to know each other again. So it was a wonderful thing we did, and we shared many a laugh over some of the stories we'd hear about the antique. But it was a good thing.
So the fire was a tragedy, but actually it had some growth of the parish where it helped the parish unify more and get together to repair the fire damage and also make the church a better place.
Right.
And so that was 1974. And then in about a month from now, we're going to have, I think yearly they have St. Bernard's feast day, I believe, is August 21st, and they have a yearly picnic usually on August 21st since the 1870s or 80s. been going on each year. So it's going to be this year on August 13th, and we're going to try to summarize some of the history of the parish. But it's been a very fruitful parish now, close to 130, 40 years old. Any other things you think about the parish that other people need to know, Paul or Jeannie?
Well, I think we've had a very successful religious education program here. And Marlene Obert and I and Rose Obert were very happy about that working out. And I don't know when they didn't have a religious ed program, but we've tried many new things through the years, and we try to stay up on everything that needs to be taught to the young people here. One of our favorite things is our First Communions. They're well known. The children sing solos in them, and most people love coming out to one of our First Communions.
Yeah, I've seen that you, Miss Obert, and you and some other people have been in religious education for probably 3 or 4 decades. So you've learned a lot. You learned that the children's needs and the children's how to educate children changes with time, and you have to change with time as well.
Go with the flow.
Yes, yeah. It's the most important. That's the next generation. And being, like you said, out at the cemetery, we have close to 132 families now. Remember, prior to the about 1930, you had 52 families. In 1930, went down to 52 families in 38 after the recession. Before that, it was over 100 families. So the recession hurt here a lot, and they closed the school here in 1929 because of the bad recession that hit the nation. And the school never opened. We showed that earlier, a 2-room schoolhouse, and the nuns lived upstairs, and it was mostly orders of the orders of St. Benedict that taught here. Yeah. And then if you look at the history of this, as you teach kids, you've also helped other parishes start. Fort Branch helped you start, and you were their parish that they helped sponsor, and then you sponsored one in Oakland City where you were nursery years, and they sponsored one there. And so that's how these little churches get going. So big farming community here. Most people are farmers around here, I assume.
I got to say one too. The Christmas play was unique. You had diverse people. Jeannie would write the plays. Rose would keep the records. Marlene would do what she had to do. I can't remember, but she always was in there doing something. Then, of course,
her idea was if you get the children to church.
And Betty Brown was there, and they just was outstanding. Even some of the bishops would say there, and they were just outstanding. Just overwhelmed with some of the things that came out there. It was just beautiful, just utterly beautiful when the girls got together.
Well, what Jeannie said,
they just worked together. They worked a lot better than us men did. You know,
women know how to volunteer. And Jeannie said, you get the kids there, the parents will come. So the attendance moved up. Marlene said that, yeah. But the attendance goes up. You look at sports, you look at any school activities. That's what happens. Yeah. Well, thank you for your day here, and this has been super. This is July 25th, 2017 at St. Bernard's. Well,
the parish calls it Bernard. Now, if you got any French in it, you could call it Bernard, but, I had swung to the Bernard.
Bernard.
And, I'm real proud of the church. I'm proud of the people, and I'm proud of ourselves for helping. What little we could help, I'm proud of that.
And we're at Snake Run Snake Run, Indiana. Yes. Not a very big town. What's the population of Snake Run?
What part of the population?
What is the population here? 500, 200?
That's a good question.
Not real high.
1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. A bunch.
A bunch, yeah.
A bunch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All good people.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we just got Father Emick about a year ago. And so he increased our church by 1, but he's well worth it. A very nice young man. And the beautiful thing about his story is that he joined the church, the Catholic Church, and just joined the church, nothing else going on right then. And later on he decided he wanted to become a priest. I don't know all his story about his vocation, but I just know that he's a wonderful young man. He preaches a wonderful Sunday homily. He believes in prayer and doing good things with prayer. And he's just made a very nice person to be in our group. His mother and father also joined the church after Father Brian did. So it's quite a family. I've not been around his mother very much, so that I know anything personal about her. I can just tell, seeing her from a distance, she's a nice person and must be very, very proud of her son.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thanks for the day. Okay.